Hello and welcome to this episode of The Rest is Entertainment with me, Marina Hyde.
And me, Richard Osman. Marina, what a week. It's been the week we've all been waiting for. We've been looking forward to it.
Are you talking about the wedding of the millennium?
Of course I am. To all those that celebrate, which is all of us. It's so, I don't think I've stopped weeping.
No.
It was just so beautiful. It's lovely to see love win.
This, of course, is the wedding of Rest is Entertainment untouchable, Lauren Sanchez.
Who did she marry?
She married a guy like a basic called Jeff Bezos.
Oh, like the Waterstones guy?
Yeah, the Waterstones guy.
But anyway, we're going to be talking about that.
We'll be talking about that. And we're also going to talk about F1, the movie.
Yeah, which we've both been to see.
And which is a huge hit. And we're going to talk about all sorts of aspects of what it means, the movie itself, what it means for the people who made it, and what it means for the sport.
What it means for Brad Pitt.
What it means for Brad Pitt.
And that's the prism through which I see everything. What does this mean for Brad Pitt?
What does this mean for his screen persona? How has it evolved?
Should we start with Love is in the Air?
Love is certainly in Venice.
The sap is rising. Sap is rising, so are the ocean levels.
Yeah. Lauren and Jeff got married in Venice, which, unless you've been hiding under a rock, you'll have seen this sort of blitzkrieg of coverage of it. And there were multiple events across the city for them. I think I'm trying to think of all the different things they had. There was we'll talk about the different types of wedding event they had, but they had multiple parties, multiple Kardashians, some A-listers, some business people.
Some A-list Kardashians, some B-list Kardashians.
Yeah, and even the bottom tier. Clearly, it was
a real Kardashian deep dive, wasn't it?
It really was.
They're real. Jeff and Lauren are real Kardashian completists.
Yes, they are. They had the full set. Anyhow, now the tradition of, I suppose, using Venice in this way for dates, if not as old as love itself, then certainly back to 2014 when George Clooney and Amal Clooney got married in Venice. And remember, people loved that, of course. They thought it was wonderful. I know various people who were involved in that wedding. Now, they wanted...
Same. I know a couple of the caterers.
Yeah. They wanted to be seen.
George
They wanted to be seen. So you have... And stepping off the same jetties this week, you had all the Kardashians and Lauren Sanchez in a huge number of outfits. And in some ways they did, they want to be seen. They press release about the jewelry. There was another enormous sort of $7 million ring that she was wearing, as well as the 30-carat ring she'd had from the start. And Vogue has immediately dropped a sort of online cover, which is all the inside take on the wedding. And they've obviously got exclusive pictures. And people absolutely made it very clear that they hated this. Which they didn't when George and Amal got married there. And partly, I suppose, it's the nature of the two principals.
Yeah.
But I think it's not that wealth inequality wasn't an issue back in 2014, but we didn't talk about it the whole time like we do now.
Yeah, and also it's George Clooney. And he's on the side of the good people, right? So we don't mind him splurging millions on a wedding.
Yeah, but I do think there's something has changed in the culture, and so there was various types of protest.
They had to move where the actual wedding was, didn't they? Because
one of their events moved.
Venetians were complaining. And so not in our city.
Or some people were complaining. Yes, it's not quite clear. There's so vanishingly few people who actually live in Venice now that I think some of the protest was bussed in, shall we say. But it's interesting. And so the fashion is a huge aspect of this. And they've had, none of these people are what you would call stealth wealth, quiet luxury, all these trends. I mean, it is all out there.
Yeah, all the time.
I ended up writing about it this week, and I was trying to think of what her look says, Lauren's, and it's that she just wants to look really sexy and really rich all of the time, and like she's having a great time all of the time. And she wants to show, her cleavage and her money all the time. And she really doesn't care what anyone else thinks. This is what makes her, I think, very unusual, because in the old days, Billy, once you became a billionaire's wife or a billionaire's second wife or wherever it is, you moved into a different milieu and you felt socially awkward. People, the terrible sort of social anxiety of the super rich is a thing.
Yeah,
and
she did not look particularly awkward, I have to say.
She's like, she doesn't care at all what people think of her. She doesn't care, and she can buy all the stuff anyway. She doesn't need designers to... there was something that people were saying, which designers will actually dress her? Will certain people just say no? And it's like, sorry, high fashion is there's a very few people who can purchase couture.
Yeah,
Very few people.
It's like Rolls Royces. If you sell one a week, you've had a good year. Yeah, if someone's coming to your shop and saying, I want to buy that dress, you go,
yeah,
of course.
I mean,
sorry, you're a Kazakh what? An arms dealer, of course.
That's the thing, is that who actually buys couture? And when you go to the couture shows in Paris, there are a very small pool of people who will actually buy it. And there are lots of, Chinese billionaires. There are lots of wives of leaders of African nations. And you might actually think maybe the Bezos Sanchez's didn't make their money in such a questionable way as some of those people. So, of course, they're going to get dressed by these people. But all of this stuff was press released. So you heard that she had a cocktail dress by Oscar de la Renta featuring 600 yards.
The boxer?
Oscar de la Renta. 600 yards, Richard, of hand-sewn chain and 175,000 crystals.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. So they really want to tell you that all of these people went up. But so you're
Where did they do that? In some Amazon fulfillment center in Scottsdale?
Yeah.
Just someone sewing on sequins?
Yes. Having to go to the loo in a bottle. Yeah, that's how it worked. Anyway, so some more details of outfits that we perhaps didn't even see have emerged. And Vogue describes one as a draped deep V burgundy velvet look inspired by the Doges of Venice, the medieval magistrates who ruled the Venetian oligarchy. She doesn't lean out of the oligarchy thing.
No,
I will
she
say
doesn't.
that. No.
Yeah.
And there's something very weird. It's for me, it's the Real Housewivesation of everything. And by the way, we should do a bonus episode on that franchise at one point. But there's something about these women behaving in a certain way, bringing their own drama, but it's how they exist in our culture, which is that these type of rich women exist as an object of scorn and derision. And that's basically it. No one is saying that, I admire her so much, she's so chic, whatever.
We do.
You do.
We do, don't we? I love her books mainly.
I love her books. We're one of only 43 purchasers of one of the books, I think.
Yeah, I saw her described as a best-selling author in one of the pieces.
You didn't?
I thought, that's a stretch.
Wow, what would you be by that?
So what is that, do we think? Do we think it's that there have always been billionaires? Or, whatever a billionaire was in the 19th century, has always been people with enormous amounts of money. There's always an unease if you are one of those people, because in your day-to-day life, you must understand something is up with the amount of money you have and the things you see out of the window of your car or your horse and carriage. So you know that something is up which you're uncomfortable with. So there's all sorts of stories you can tell yourself about, one's innate talent and hard work. So I get that. But in the olden days, there would be that thing of, we'll just keep a little bit quiet about it because we do get it. We understand that something isn't right in the state of the world if we have got this much money. But in the last 20 years, the rise of shamelessness has given just an absolute get-out-of-jail-free card to so many people, which has said, look, of course, it's absolutely crazy that you're a billionaire, but there are lots of people who would like to see the dresses that you're wearing, or if you're, a guy, they would like to see the gym you're at. They'd like to see, the way you've sculpted your body over the last 10 years, and how you've been kind of medically turned into some sort of super being. And so they are able now to lean into it and go, yeah, we are billionaires. Yeah, look at the absurdity of what we've created and what we've got.
Oh, you think they were making a satirical point with their wedding?
No, I don't think that. I think they're having their cake and eating it is what I think. I think they're having an enormous pavlova and eating the entire thing. I think your shamelessness is now monetizable. And I think that's what this is. This is like the apogee of that.
There's something weird about it happening in Venice, obviously a kind of amazing Renaissance city, but I suppose if Florence maybe even more so, that these cities were basically built culturally by very, very rich oligarchs in Vogue's parlance, or whatever, by these nobles. These people contribute absolutely nothing culturally at all other than Instagram pictures. That's it. They don't actually...
Wait a minute, that's a lot.
There's not going to be a gallery at some point like the Uffizi filled with all the kind of works that their patronage has created or anything like that. There's no real culture.
Challenge accepted.
There's no real culture that they give at all other than Instagram pictures, which, as you say, are quite shameless and are quite sort of self-advertising.
Hello, YouTube viewers. This is an advert for the Wrestlers Entertainment in the middle of the Wrestlers Entertainment. I just wanted you to know that everyone who's watching right now, half of you are subscribed to the channel. The other half are not yet subscribed to the channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel and you're enjoying it, please do subscribe. We are so close to 100,000 subscribers. And just for our own ego, really, and for the numbers, we'd love to get to 100,000. So if you haven't subscribed and you'd like to, subscribe now. Back to the Wrestlers Entertainment. I just have one question: is why did they do it? Anyone here who's been married or whatever, you think, oh, great, I'm going to get married to the person I love. We'll have our friends round.
Yeah.
We'll make sure they have a really, really good time. Make sure it's a party, but it's a party because everyone's happy because you're in love and you're making a commitment. So that's what a wedding is. But what was this? And I'm absolutely certain they're in love with each other, by the way. They certainly look in love with each other, and I'm genuinely happy. It's nice that people find love. But what is it that they are having to say to people? What? Both of them are in on it. Neither of them is saying, oh, do you know what? Is this a bit ostentatious? They're both going, you know what? Let's go for it. We've earned this. Bezos is
he's a basic.
He's one of the richest men in the world, however you want to measure it. What has he still got left to prove? That
Everything.
He has to do this.
This.
Yeah.
I mean, they really, as I said, they really wanted to be seen, but that's not unique. The Clooneys wanted to be seen as well in the same way.
Yeah.
But I do think there's something about, and also about these type of weddings where there were 2 pre-wedding dinners, there was a ceremony, there was a wedding dinner, and there was a pajama-themed after-party concert. It's like there's a sort of daily tentpole event, but it's like a series. It's it's like a format. It's a huge thing.
When you get invited to a wedding, okay, I'm going to, as a thought experiment, I get invited to a wedding, and I get invited to a wedding by someone who I know and like, but my relationship to them is probably similar to, say, Orlando Bloom's relationship to Jeff Bezos. Okay, that's how far removed I am. So we're in each other's orbit, I've had fun with them, but do you think, oh, I didn't know I'd get invited this night? I'm happy to be invited, but I could easily have not been invited to this wedding. So you kind of go, oh, should we go? Is there? I guess we should go. And then it's like they'll send a thing through. By the way, it's 4 days long, and it's in Italy, and you're like, God, I don't really know you that well, and you're going to invite me for 4 days to a wedding.
They don't have any old friends. Celebrities don't have old friends.
Yeah.
If you look at her hen party, bachelorette party in their language, which took place in Paris, like all of these people were from 15 minutes ago.
Oh no, really?
It was very weird. They had a day in the Hermes shop.
Oh, really?
And it was all on Instagram. And it was sort of like, it's almost like it's an advert.
Yeah.
But then, were they, because you have to be invited or whatever to buy one of those bags.
An advert for people, the richest people in the world, so who don't need to do adverts.
For Hermes, I don't know, you have to be invited to buy one of those bags, but actually, everyone's got one of someone. I saw someone this week saying, even the Real Housewives have these particular bags.
You can get them in Dubai.
There's other guests though that I think were like Eva Longoria. She's the opposite of Sleeping Beauty's 13th Fairy. She is on she goes to everything.
Oh, does she?
And recently presented Lauren with a humanitarian award.
Oh, good. That's about time.
Yeah, they went down to Cannes. But there were also sort of funny events. They want to be seen. They did a foam party. I sent you the pictures of that. You saw that, right?
Yeah.
On the deck of the world's biggest yacht. Remember, he's got the world's biggest yacht, and it's so big that it has to have another yacht that carries around after it, things like the helicopter pad and
of course it does.
Little personal submarine. Genuinely,
it's got a personal submarine. Yeah. Come on, guys, that's tempting.
He's basic.
Yeah.
He's so basic. He sort
of. Listen, it's extraordinary what he's achieved. It really is, given how. And I was looking a little bit into his family, which is also fascinating. He's a very interesting man. His biological father, Ted Jorgensen, was a unicyclist hockey player.
Really?
Yeah. He's adopted.
Not at once.
Yeah, at once. Yeah, he founded a unicycling hockey team.
Blimey, Jeff, what can you do?
I have to say his adoptive father, Miguel Bezos, sounds like an absolute dude, though.
Does he?
And that's who Jeff absolutely considers to be his biological father. But the world would be a different place if some of these people grew up funny.
I completely agree.
Do you know what I mean?
No, or sort of...
and could walk into a room and everyone was happy to see them because they knew, they were going to have a laugh.
But the foam party on the yacht, I was... First of all, there's a lot, which they did on the deck of the yacht. Okay. And there's like 4 of them. It's really tragic. Yeah. So I thought, this is quite funny that they've done this. But I actually think that paparazzi photos... And in general, the Eat the Rich genre needs to evolve. I would have loved to have seen the kind of really disconsolate photos of the help just endlessly clearing up the foam afterwards. Just a really silent, slow film.
Yeah, just
put it in a gallery and call it art.
You
want
to see a picture of 2 people with mops, neither of whom want to do it. Just have the argument about who has to clear up the foam party.
They might be very funny people, those 2.
Exactly, I bet they are.
There could be dialogue.
It just seems so tiring. If I were a multi-billionaire, I would just think, you know what I'm going to do? Nothing. I will do nothing. I'm going to stay in. I'm going to watch Below Deck. I'm going to look after the people that I love. I'm going to have my mates around. I'm going to do nothing. I'm going to do everything I can never to be photographed. You're the richest man in the world.
Well, in some ways...
Why do you want all this hoopla around your wedding?
In some ways, they behave in the way that a lot of people think they would behave when they were famous. And that's what people used to say about the Spice Girls right at the start. Oh, they're really fun. They behave like I would behave if I got famous. I would go out and have fun every night and act like that and just look like they're having a good time. And in fact, what happens when most people become famous is that they just sit at home and moan about privacy. I understand that and my sympathies, etc. But the Bezoses in some ways behave, like they've won the lottery. And they're in a film about a couple who suddenly
we can't believe our luck,
and they're like, well, we're doing this. Normally there is a moral payoff to all of that.
I would have loved,
and I sort of feel like they lose everything, and then in the movie version of this,
I would have loved an old-fashioned tweet along from Jeff Bezos' first wife.
Yeah,
just about the wedding, because she knows who he is. If anyone knows who he is, it's her, right?
Mackenzie.
And she's come out, she's got all of this money. She does lots of good things for good causes. But just imagine if that's your ex, like having that phone party with 4 people on the biggest yacht in the world. Just
the camera trained on her face as the pictures came in would have been lovely. So I do think that it's about wanting to be seen, and I think it's that there's something incredibly tone deaf about that in as I say, the culture has moved on and people think about these things.
I don't know that. I think probably there's no such thing as tone deaf anymore. Or it's better to be absolutely kind of tone or entirely tone deaf, because that's half of our culture now. And actually, as you say, they've committed to the bit. That's the key, isn't it? They've gone, you know what? If we're going to be a billionaire, we're going to be a billionaire. Let's do every single thing that a billionaire would do in a film. Let's do all of those. Apart from
lose all their money at the start of Act 3.
Oh yeah, they wouldn't do that. I think their money is probably safe. Yes, it felt like there wasn't anything holding it up. I mean, there is, because I do. You look at the two of them, and you do think I do think they're in love with each other. I think they've found someone that they're happy spending time with. So that holds it up a bit. But everything around it, the weight of the whole thing, where it is, how much it costs, who's there, why they're there, it feels so fragile.
I was so embarrassed for the celebrity friends. Not for Orlando Bloom, who, as we know, do you remember that one of my favourite Life in the Days in the Sunday Times, where he talks about what he does, and he said he spends a lot of time dreaming of roles for myself and others, for minorities and women. So he was probably just, as every time you saw him in the back of one of those water taxis, you were thinking, even now, that brain will be whirring and you'll be dreaming up roles for minorities and women. And Leonardo DiCaprio...
He was there with his girlfriend, Vittoria Ceretti, who's a model. Now, they often say that Leonardo DiCaprio only goes out with people who are 26 and under, right? Vittoria Ceretti is not 26 or under. You know how old she is?
How old?
She turned 27 2 weeks ago.
Wow. Well, as they always say...
June the 6th, she turned... She's thinking, I bet she lied. But she said, no, so actually, it's not the 6th. It is the 6th of July, just so she got to go to the wedding.
Yeah.
By the way, my favourite guest, and I think it's absolutely fair enough. Anyone who has a wedding, invite this guy, Usher.
Yeah.
It's like inviting someone called Page Boy to your wedding.
It was, if he wasn't an usher, I'll cry.
Oh, that would be having Usher as your usher.
Singing Usher.
Oh, I'd love that.
I would, okay.
We look back on this time in 30 years. We look back on this time of oligarchs and of shamelessness and of, publicly spending one's money. Is this the defining moment of the whole thing, the Sanchez Bezos wedding?
Yes, I suppose it is in a way, because it was so empty in lots of ways. Other than you say, they obviously love each other. But it's, as you say, it's built on nothing in lots and lots of ways. And unlike the robber barons of the Gilded Age, who, however bad they were, they gave America these huge cultural treasures and kind of created all this stuff. As I say, these people just give us Instagram pictures. That's it. And I'm sure, people will say, well, hang on, they've donated £5 million to an ocean project. Okay, great. Culturally, they give us nothing except for Instagram pictures. That's it. They don't give us anything. And I think that's really interesting. It's not like Carnegie and the libraries or whatever it is. They just don't give us anything at all.
I think one fact that sums up where we are as a culture is there were 95 private jets brought guests in, 95 private jets, and half the world is going 95 private jets. That's disgraceful, and the other half is going, "Wow, that's cool." And I'm sort of on the fence.
Yes.
No, listen, I'm very anti I'm very anti climate change, strongly anti.
I'm strongly against.
I'm just I'm gonna go on the record there. I say I'd rather the world did not boil and explode.
Absolutely.
And that's my final. That's when the historians do look back on this. I hope they quote me on that.
Well, they might say that those jets were the tipping point, making the seas actually rise and cover Venice completely.
I mean, that's the place. You are going to somewhere.
Well, that's the end of Act 3, maybe.
That is. I mean, you have your wedding somewhere that is literally sinking. Okay.
And
have you heard of the Titanic?
Yeah. Yeah. There was a feel of that to it, wasn't it? But I actually don't think that they're in any way. I think that the fact that they behaved like that and the fact that they display it like that shows how utterly secure they feel in that mega wealth. And they don't feel that it's something that it might be politic to play down or to seclude from public attention, anything at all. So I think that the kind of tech oligarchs feel like they remain on the up and
well, because now they've all got bunkers.
Yeah.
They have. I mean, they've all got bunkers. They've all got an escape hatch. They're like us. They think it's the end of times as well. But they've got somewhere to go after the end of times.
But Noel Edmonds is already there. So as I said to you before.
Yeah, it's not
there may be some
justice. Good. But we give our congratulations to the happy couple.
Our congratulations to the happy couple.
Jeff and Lauren.
Jeff and Lauren. Well, having toasted them, shall we go to a break?
Let's go for a break. This podcast is brought to you by Sky Sports on Now.
If you're after gripping drama this summer with no script, limited health and safety measures and plot twists in gum shields, the British and Irish Lions are touring Australia.
3 tests, 6 warm-ups, a cast of battered heroes with more bandaged ears than a Van Gogh exhibition.
Now, the Lions is rugby at its most mythical, forged from folklore, fueled by rivalry, 4 nations, 6 weeks, 1 jersey, and unlike most franchises, this one comes round only once every 4 years.
And it's the first tour to Australia in 12 years. Expect packed stadiums, electric atmospheres, and kangaroo mascots that look like they've seen things. It's pure sporting theatre. And this time, the curtain rises mid-morning.
Which, let's be honest, is the dream. No late kickoffs or caffeinated anthems, just a front row seat with breakfast from your sofa as 30 men audition for immortality.
It's not just a team, it is a temporary alliance of rivals chasing legacy.
You can catch every match live on Sky Sports, available to stream with Now.
Welcome back, everybody, from love to fast cars, the F1 movie.
This show's got it all.
It really has.
Yeah, the F1 movie, which came out, it gets one of those slightly longer release opening weekends, but because of American holidays. It's produced by legendary action producer Jerry Bruckheimer. It's directed by Joseph Kosinski, who did Top Gun Maverick, so knows quite a lot about having to make small cockpits look exciting. And it stars Brad Pitt as Sonny Hayes, a kind of, who's returning in a kind of mentor role.
As an F1 driver. So he was an F1 driver from the 80s, had a crash. He's now coming back. He's had a crash in the 90s, now comes back. He's sort of 60-odd, and he comes back to help out his old friend Javier Bardem, who runs a slightly dilapidated racing team who have to win a race before the end of the season or they close down.
Or the board's going to take his company off him.
Yeah.
It's taken 55 million in the US and 85 million worldwide. You always knew it's going to be bigger worldwide than the US, but it's drawing those in US audiences in. That is an unbelievable opening for a sports action movie. Like whatever it's about. Never mind that it's about something that used to be considered niche. That is an unbelievable opening.
That must be Brad Pitt's biggest ever.
And it's by far and away Apple's. It's not quite. I don't think it's quite as big as World War Z in our language, like JZ.
That didn't trouble me.
Yeah. And it's by far and away Apple's most successful theatrical release. Remember, they've only had about 5 theatrical releases. Killers of the Flower Moon, which they've all of that, but they didn't. It didn't make its money. And then they've had big flops like Matthew Vaughan's Argyle. That was a big flop, and they've had very, very little. This is like massively broad entertainment that you can take basically your whole family to see, and it's very, very successful. And just on its own terms in like the sports action genre, that is a brilliant opening.
We're calling it It's a Hit.
I have to say, Richard, I mean, we've both seen it. To me, it is totally phenomenal what Formula One has done for itself in recent years. It is unbelievable. Okay,
they pulled off a real coup here.
Yeah, I mean, they really have. First of all, Drive to Survive is brilliant, and it's become this sort of thing that has brought so many people into watching their sport, and it's become the template for other things. You know, everyone would like, other sports would like to replicate that now. But then to have this movie as well, it's really hard because it's become such a sort of part of the fabric of sports documentaries, Drive to Survive, to think they were really the first people who did it in that way. And then to have this movie, and which they, you know, is quite obviously a massive sales pitch for Formula One. And we can talk about how they actually end up doing it within the movie itself, which I find hilarious.
Agreed.
And it's just a huge thing to have done that for yourself, to make yourself this kind of entertainment enterprise, aside from what happens in these 90 minutes, of which there are only a few a year, which are the races.
And to sell to America particularly, which is the home of NASCAR, and to sell a movie which you unequivocally understand in this film that whatever form of driving you do, wherever you've driven, for whoever, there is one pinnacle in the world of driving. It is F1. This is the greatest driving experience in the world. And in America now, that's sort of accepted. And that was definitively not accepted. Even 5 years ago, F1 found it very hard to break into the US, which is a huge market. And now, I mean, culturally, we understand that F1 is the absolute pinnacle of what you can achieve in a car.
Well, the American rights come up again, I think, next year. And I think ESPN have them now. And I really bet you Apple goes for them.
Yeah.
Now, because it's really interesting. Anyway, so let's
talk about the film.
But my God, what about even the ads before? Every ad before, I don't know, we saw it in completely different cinemas. Every ad before was for either an F1 sponsor or a partner. Obviously, the real there's advertising throughout the movie because things are written on the cars.
The advertising throughout the movie is amazing. It's just that it's almost beautiful. In the way you can see
advertising has achieved its final form.
Almost every single frame you're thinking, okay, that's paid for. Yeah. That's paid for. Okay, that's good. So I don't know how much it cost, but you know, a lot of it was offset.
A huge amount was offset, and
as you say, because it's F1, everything is branded anyway, so it's perfect.
It's authentic.
You're not kind of thinking it's weird that they would have Pepsi there. You think, oh no, of course they would, because it's an advertising.
If they
boarding.
didn't, it would not be authentic. And there's no point trying to invent some cheesy soft drink that doesn't exist. Just get Pepsi to sponsor it.
Or a cheesy soft drink. Sounds terrible.
That makes me feel quite ill now. Okay, the movie itself. Yes. First of all, I'll talk about what is done for Brad Pitt in a minute. In a movie like this, you have to explain the sport a lot.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. You remember that Michael York character in the Austin Powers movies called Basil Exposition? They've got so many Basil Expositions in this. Yeah. I'll tell you why, because they've got... Because people don't understand the rules of it. And obviously lots of Formula One races hinge on sort of technicalities or...
Almost all of them. Pit stops or...
Anyway, you have to look at a clock to see how well anyone's doing. So the whole, but you've got... First of all, so all the opportunities for exposition are the track commentary, the stuff that goes over the loudspeakers that people in the crowds hear, is constantly in this movie. People saying, well, he can do this, but in fact, what's happened here is... Yeah,
but also, you know...
I'm not going to spoil any plot points, by the way.
But, you know, this team at the beginning of the movie, at least, at the back of the grid, and then they spend an awful lot of time, the on-track commentator, talking about the cars that are in 17th and 18th.
Yeah.
I mean,
remember, this is a battle for last place.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And then there's the people who were actually in Drive to Survive, like that motoring journalist and commentator Will Buxton.
Yes.
You know, has a significant Basil Exposition role in this movie.
He's good,
as well.
Yeah. No, the real Basil Exposition are Martin Brundle and David Croft, who were the F1 commentators, because they're, you know, do you remember when you used to play like the early football sims? And, you know, there'd be like Martin Tyler and Alan Smith would have spent like 3 days in a Soho recording studio saying, oh, he's passed it down to the wing.
Yeah.
Great cross there. It's a clearance. It was that almost non-stop. Brundle and Crofty.
The whole movie.
Yeah, they did a great job, by the way. But, you know, they're having to say things like, and don't forget, because the safety car has come out, it could be a useful time to go into the pits because half of the time in the pits will be taken off. So actually, you can keep track position at this point of the race. Okay.
I'm not joking, but this is not to denigrate the achievement of the movie, which is pitched at the level that if you don't understand it, they want you to be able to understand it.
But also, you don't understand it because if you're, like, I made a million quiz shows, if something's simple, explain it and people will understand it. If it is something like what happens when a virtual safety car comes out, the people who know F1 already know what happens, okay, and you explaining it to them, they're going, yeah, Martin, I know. And the people who don't know F1, what you are saying makes zero sense whatsoever. But it's just noise. It's noise in the
absolute
background.
gibberish. It's hysterical. And you're sitting there thinking, I can't believe I'm having the virtual safety car explained to me. And it's a really important part of Act 2.
I want to get Martin Brundle and David Croft in the studio because they did such a great job. I just want to hear about the day they spent with the script in front of them saying, and just one more time, make it a tiny bit more natural. Could you do it a tiny bit more natural? And they go, well, we would never say this, but we'll give it a go.
Yeah. And there's the sort of heel in it, who's played by Tobias Menzies, says, honestly, one of the first things he says on screen was, I'm a huge fan. I've binged all of Drive to Survive. There's so much, and what I love about it as well, because they shot hugely.
Oh, we should say, by the way, and I should say as well, I loved this movie. I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it, and I didn't love it.
But I didn't love it.
I was glad I watched it.
So was I. Come on. Yeah. The Brad Pitt bit of it, I liked. I mean, it is a bit like having Drive to Survive, but instead of Christian Horner, you've got Brad Pitt. I'm going to take the upgrade. But what I loved is that it's so. First of all, Kim Bodnia, who used to be in The Bridge, he plays the team principal. And you just realise, oh my God, of course, you look exactly like one of the team principals.
Yeah, it's exactly.
It is perfect physical casting.
And the other team principals, by the way, are played by themselves. There are like press conferences where all the people you'll know and love from Drive to Survive literally play themselves. Zach Brown is in there.
Toto Wolff.
Toto Wolff, yeah. I'm going to say some of them acted well. Toto Wolff, listen, love the guy. He needs work.
Yeah, I don't give up the day job, Toto. But what I find what was so funny about it in lots of different ways was, you end up, because they're so desperate for it to be authentic, which is a whole set, which I think is extraordinary, because in the old days, you used to be able to make a sort of, and Jerry Bruckheimer did it himself, even if you would make something like Days of Thunder, and okay, there were a couple of real race drivers in that, and NASCAR drivers, but it was fine for it to be at a sort of basic level and for things to happen that could never really happen in the real world. And the reason that so much of this plot has to hinge on things like digital safety cars is because in the era in which we live, you're so afraid of fans saying it's nothing like this, this could never happen, and actually that mattering, and it not just being a sort of general wide release summer fun movie, which is what you could get away with in the past, is that they have to have every single thing right, and it has to be done on the tracks, the real circuits, and you have to be able to see all the people. And it's quite funny, you're watching someone like, obviously Max Verstappen can't really be doing with Drive to Survive, so I can tell you he does not look like he can be doing a whole lot with this movie. There's a few
Lewis
cutaways
Hamilton
of him. Executive producer and is massively involved in this movie, massively involved in it, and he's got a production company now, and he's looking obviously to do more things.
I was seeing an interview with him where he was saying, and then Hans Zimmer gets involved, so we go to Hans Zimmer's studio, and I don't know, you absolutely have to be in Hans Zimmer's studio. I don't know if Hans Zimmer is going, I'd love to start work on it, but Lewis Hamilton hasn't come in yet. But he does. See, Lewis.
I thought the soundtrack was a miss, by the way. Sorry.
When you're talking about the authenticity of it, often producer credits like that are vanity credits. It feels like Hamilton. The one thing Hamilton does talk about, and I absolutely believe this. He said, "I was there to try and make it authentic at all points, like what they're hearing in the cockpit. What two sounds you'd hear at the same time, what sort of moves you could make and couldn't make. I was across that all the time, and I absolutely buy that he was across that, because it does feel incredibly real. The storyline doesn't feel real at all. As you're saying, the problem you have in this movie is what you really want in a movie like this is for Brad Pitt to come in and he's such a good driver that he drives faster than everybody else.
Yeah, right? And he wins the title. That's what happens in movies like this.
Which you can't do, because we know enough to know that his car is not as fast as the other cars, so it's not going to go. And they do a good thing. Kerry Condon, who is the sort of technical expert behind the team, she's really good in it. She's the absolute heart of the movie, I think. She kind of remodels the car very, very quickly, I have to say, and against almost all FIA regulations, but let's let that sit. You can't do the thing of just saying, oh my God, he was last and now he's driving he's driven past the 19th. He's driven past the 18th because he's so fast at driving. You can't do it. So the whole movie...
That's purely because of our age, because of authenticity. In the old days, you would have made this movie and that's exactly what would have happened.
Yeah.
You can't have that sort of movie anymore because you're so afraid of petrol heads saying, or whichever constituency it is for whichever movie, this isn't real. Can we talk a bit about Brad Pitt's new screen persona? Because a lot has happened to Brad Pitt in recent years, and we all know about it. There's been so much sort of tabloid interest in his life, his schism with his wife, apparently with most of his children, and it's a whole big thing. And it's really interesting to see him now, because he was always the sort of a different sort of like young sort of Taro. And now, because things have happened to Brad Pitt, he is a character to whom things have happened. And he's moved into that like mentor role that Paul Newman played for a significant part of his career. And I thought it was quite interesting seeing that. I mean, I think he's very charming in it.
Yes, he is very. It's a really, really lovely central performance. Sort of believable. Not a lot happens with his character, I'll say that. But you like him. You like it when he's on screen.
He was broken before he started.
Yeah.
This is, there's not a huge journey.
He's not mended at the end.
No.
Yeah.
No. What I think also is very interesting about this movie is that it is an original. That means it is not based on IP. It's not based on and so it was interesting. A lot of people thought other movies would do much better than this. They even thought like Megan 2.0, the Blumhouse horror sequel, might even beat it, and which it hasn't done at all. It's sort of fallen away that weekend. But I think it's very hard. The tracking is now so off with these originals because there are so few of them. There are 80 or 90 original titles made in Hollywood every year and about 60 franchise titles. But in terms of the box office, 82% of box office comes from franchises. And only 18% from originals. So something like this, whether or not you like it, we should celebrate it because this is a movie that has been entirely created from nothing.
And also from some scrappy underdogs. Brad Pitt, Liberty Media own F1 and Apple. Yeah. It's lovely to see the underdog have their day.
Well, actually, the director said this is a coming together of two great brands. And I thought, well, even directors are talking like that now. Apple and F1.
Yeah, which is what Orson Welles said about Citizen Kane, right? He said I've got the castle people involved, I've got the sledge people involved.
This is big sledge and big castle are loving this. But actually, bringing us on to Apple, because in order to promote this one, you've got the slightly bizarre spectacle. You mentioned Hans Zimmer, and I will say, that I do think that the soundtrack was a miss. They should have had a Top Gun flying, like that Harold Faltermeyer flying music. They should have had that for when he was achieving kind of race nirvana and everything was quiet. They should have had something like that. They didn't have anything like that, any of that music. So I thought that was a bit of a miss. But there was a big interview on the front of Variety recently in which Lewis Hamilton and Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, are standing together talking about this movie. And, people...
They're very much the Bezos and Sanchez of this
particular
film.
one. Yeah. We keep saying, why are Apple in this business? Why are Apple in the to use a terrible word, content business at all. And people always say, this is an incredibly expensive movie. It's like, don't worry, they're like a $3 trillion company. I think they can afford any price of this is fine.
That's like treating yourself to an expensive sandwich at lunch.
Yeah, it's really,
once every couple of weeks, you go for it.
You can have it, and that's before all the sponsorship. So, and they do keep saying, this isn't about trying to make you buy tech. But of course, in that interview, Tim Cook says, all the camera technology, we're so leading in the camera technology and we were able to put them inside the cockpit and that's how it works like that. But all of that technology is in some way distilled into the iPhone 16. You think, it is always sort of about making you want to buy tech or bundle your purchases within Apple. And I find it's very, very interesting why they are actually doing it. They haven't gone out and bought a massive library of stuff. That's what people keep saying. They've got all this money. Why don't they just go and buy some stuff? So there's actually, obviously they've got some great shows and they've had a really good run of stuff recently. They've got The Studio. They've also got Slow Horses. They've got, this is by far and away their most successful film, by far and away. And if it had been a disaster, then I think people would start saying, are you just going to keep doing this ridiculous thing where you give creators loads of money and then you keep having flops?
But, by the way, it's far and away their most successful thing for one reason and one reason only, is maybe we don't know all the we don't know all the numbers for some of their other original stuff because they don't release it in cinemas. And this one, whether it's through Brad Pitt, whether it's through F1, they've negotiated a 30-day theatrical window, which these days is almost unheard of. I think Thursday Murder Club, we're going to do a week-long theatrical window, and all that stuff is quite hard fought. But a 30-day theatrical window is insane. But also it means that you can have a huge opening weekend. Suddenly, this thing is at the heart of the media. Everybody's talking about it. So when it does drop on Apple itself, you have a huge thing already because people have paid to do your advertising for you. People have paid to go into cinemas, which we like anyway, because we love people going to cinemas or theatres in the States. They've done all of your pre-publicity. all of the reviews are like, this is a cinema movie. And so when it comes to your platform in a month's time, you have this ready. It's almost like you have bought a big franchise hit, because you've made it a hit by putting it in the cinemas. It doesn't cost you a huge amount. You lose that exclusivity for a month, but no one else is getting this after that month. This is not going on Netflix. It's not going on Disney Plus. It's going on Apple. And so I wonder if it will change the views of some streamers as to whether having a theatrical release actually can be quite useful.
Yes. I mean, this is such a spectacle, as it were, and they want it to be such a spectacle, and they want you to basically see it in IMAX if you can. I didn't see it in IMAX, but they would love you to do that.
It's too much IMAX for this. It's so big.
It is very big. But I do think it will. I do think they will want to pick up the F1 rights, because they're buying more and more sport from companies like all the streamers who said they weren't going to get into sport. They've got into sport.
Well, certainly the F1 rights are going to be an awful lot more valuable than they were last time. I mean, an insane amount more valuable.
You have to credit the sport. I think it is absolutely extraordinary what they've done with how they're seen and the type of people. I mean, you know how American theatrical audiences are broken down by sort of race, by all different types of demographic. 38% of people watching this movie in the opening weekend were women. That is actually, you said to me 10 or 15 years ago, 38% of the audience for a movie about cars would be women, you would never have believed it. And they've all come in via Drive to Survive. We've talked about before, those huge numbers who just come in and love the plot lines and love all of those sorts of things. And I think it's amazing what it's done for itself by imagining itself as an entertainment that can exist year round in different ways and not just in those 90 minutes of race time. And I think there's nobody to touch it in terms of what it's done for itself.
Yeah, I think it's one of the great marketing achievements. And I don't say that like marketing achievements. Genuinely, that's your job. Your job is to make some, your job is to
make people watch your sport.
I've always loved F1. I've always seen what was good about F1, and it has always, to me, it's always been people. That's the thing I'm interested in. And to have taken that and shown that to the world in such a spectacular way, you have to take your hats off to them. It's very, very impressive. And there's lots of people who will never watch F1, but they've reached pretty much everyone who might watch F1. And, that's the job, isn't it?
They've made people want to watch their sport and made their sport, which was totally niche, seem exciting, and like it involves huge personalities, which, let's face it, in many ways motor racing has not involved huge personalities. One of the things I think is interesting is how they get round that you can see through their helmets in this. I wonder whether because that's always been a problem with F1, was that you can't really, and they're always trying to draw you in by saying, okay, you can hear their radio, and we'll let you hear their radio as a fan, and we're just always trying to find ways to make it more human. I wonder whether you actually have to have a blacked out helmet, and this was actually a piece of license that they were allowed, and because of course it's a movie and we want to see the actors' faces. That would be my next step if I could, was to find a way of getting us to be able to see their faces during races.
No helmets. There you go, do that. At the end, they thank Martin Donnelly. Now, Martin Donnelly was a Northern Irish F1 driver back in the late 80s, early 90s. And actually the crash that Brad Pitt is said to have had in this movie is based on Martin Donnelly's crash in Jerez in Spain. And you see footage of it, and it's really sort of a testament actually to the people that F1 is built on, and the sort of extraordinary kind of bravery of the people who made F1 what it is. And I was so happy to see that Martin Donnelly was thanked, and anyone who is interested in that previous incarnation of F1, there's an amazing documentary called Grand Prix: The Killer Years, about all the pioneers of F1 and some of the safety issues. And it's not the easiest watch in the world, I'll say that, but it is absolutely fascinating and works as a great companion piece to this, which is, it's not all glitz and glamour. This as well. And actually, I think that's something that the F1 film captures quite well. But lovely to see Martin Donnelly recognised and acknowledged by everyone on the film. I thought it's good because you see both sides of it. And if you
Lewis
are
Hamilton
interested in F1...
went to him and said, can we use your story for this film?
Yeah, which is fantastic because, that's what F1 is actually
Is Lewis Hamilton the hardest working executive producer you've ever heard of in anything? He's actually done a lot of stuff on this movie.
It genuinely sounds like he actually did some producing.
He actually was an executive producer.
Yeah, and he's like racing a lot, so he doesn't have all that much time. But I think that you could tell that Lewis Hamilton had his fingers across this in a good way. I think, listen, if you like Jerry Bruckheimer,
and I do,
see, you've got the great kind of long shot of the sort of Tom Cruise shot, the Brad Pitt shot in this one of him walking from distance and kind of faded jeans and a leather jacket, kind of walking down the pit straight. Oh my God, he's back. You know, you've got all the kind of Bruckheimer tropes in there. But if you are ever thinking about writing a screenplay, it's worth, I would say, printing this one out, because every single beat is exactly like to the second where the beats in a big Hollywood movie are supposed to be. It does not stray from them in any way. As you say, they have to explain lots of the beats, with Martin Brundle saying, well, the interesting thing, of course, about being in third place is if he was in fourth place, he wouldn't be able to get the slipstream because his tyres, did I mention earlier, his tyres are soft tyres because they finished 11th in qualifying, which means they've got an extra set of tyres left. Okay, anyway, that aside, every single beat is the beat of every single Hollywood movie. Brad Pitt is great in it, I think.
And that's a really good book to read if you ever want to. If you haven't read High Concert, which is the story of Don Simpson, Jerry Bruckheimer's producing partner, they create that three-act. Well, they kind of refine the three-act structure for big, flashy American movies, and they care so much, exactly as what you said, which is like, I don't want to be feeling this on page 18. I need to feel it on page 15, and then in a much more amplified way on 25. And it's almost mathematical.
In this, but
the formula they distill.
Yeah, it's really on display in this film.
Yeah.
It's really on display. But I think a special mention, I think Kerry Condon is the heart of the film. I think she actually makes it a film that has a bit of heart, that takes it slightly away from what it might have been. And I actually cried at the end. There's a bit with Javier Bardem where I was like, oh, I'm tearing up here. I'm tearing up.
Bardem totally gets the joke of this movie, and at certain points is completely chewing the scenery and just doesn't care.
Yeah, he's great in it. But I listen, it's nonsense, but it's also kind of great. But hat tip to Martin Brundle and David Croft. Your many days in that dark recording studio somewhere will never be forgotten.
I would read a full oral history about how everyone involved.
Brundle and Croft.
Actually,
If I wish at the Oscars they had an award for Best Exposition.
Well, this is nailed on, believe me. Anyway, so that's Formula One, and it's out in cinemas now.
Any recommendations this week?
I went to see the amazing Jenny Savile exhibition at the National Portrait Gallery. It's by far the best thing I have seen this year. It is, if you don't go to see art exhibitions, go and see this. I mean, she sort of exploded onto the scene at the age of 22, Jenny Savile. She's now in her 50s. And the work, these monumental canvases, are just incredible. It's absolutely an amazing exhibition. She's kind of revolutionised painting, but you also... It's just to be in the presence of some of those is extraordinary. I think she's an absolute genius, and I could not recommend it enough.
And for listeners of a certain age, you might recognise her work. She used to do the covers of lots of the Manic Street Preachers albums and things like that. That's Jenny Savile. I'm going to recommend, we finished Department Q, which I think is really, really good. So it's Netflix, and it is their attempt to have a returning series. I think they worked out after a while, they got all these limited series and they're great, but then you have to start again every time. So they're on the lookout now for returning things, and Department Q will definitely return. It's Matthew Good playing a sort of slightly irascible detective, and he builds this slightly kind of ragtag band around him, and it's a murder mystery set in Scotland with loads and loads of great. If you want character actors, you go to Scotland. There's so many kind of people who are only in this for 2 or 3 scenes where you just go, you have to IMDb them because you think, oh my God, you're brilliant.
Yeah.
That was amazing. It's a really, really good thing. And I think it gets better and better as the run progresses as well. So Department Q would be my recommendation.
Other than that, we've got a questions and answers episode as usual on Thursday, and our bonus episode this week is on summer hits, which I'm dying to do.
Yeah, what are summer hits? Where do they come from? What are the biggest ones of all time?
It will be hot in the city, let me tell you that much.
It sure will.
Anyhow, I think that's us for the day.
That is, with our further congratulations to the happy couple.
Always just perma congratulations.
Exactly, we'll see you on Thursday.
See you on Thursday.